Hi everyone. I wrote my research paper on an album that was released in June called Palimpsest by Protest the Hero. Although it can vary slightly by context, the general definition of palimpsest is writing material that has been used again after the original writing was erased. So, new text, which is over top of old text. My paper specifically focuses on two songs off the album, Rivet and Little Snakes, which I thought contributed to the overall theme of revisionist history. Revisionist history being the distortion of historical events in a way that eludes the truth, typically to push some sort of political agenda. Little Snakes and Rivet explore the United States' cyclic tendency towards racial intolerance and social marginalization. Little Snakes Tales of America's lesser acknowledged history of indigenous discrimination by focusing on the presence of Mount Rushmore and its desecration of sacred Lakota Sioux land. The Lakota Sioux are the original occupants of the Black Hills, which is where Mount Rushmore stands. In the Treaty of 1868, the U.S. government promised the Sioux territory that included the Black Hills in perpetuity. This meant that they were to be the owners of the land forever. However, this did not last long, as gold was quickly found to be abundant in the Black Hills, leading the government to force the Sioux out of the territory they had once called home and were legally promised. This ended up being a recurrent theme, treaties being written up and honored until it inconvenienced the American government and people. There were nearly 500 treaties made between the Native Americans and the U.S. leading up to the 1900s, and nearly all were broken to some extent. Of course, it should be noted that treaties were broken on both sides. It was not just the US, however, they were responsible for the majority of undone negotiations. The chorus of Little Snakes, as shown on this slide, echoes the recurrent pattern previously mentioned. Although he does not have a part in the song or in Mount Rushmore, Ulysses S. Grant's second inaugural speech reflects the sentiment felt towards Native Americans at the time, saying that they can either submit to the will of the U.S. government or be eradicated. The second song I focused on, and the closing song of the album, is Rivet. Rivet demonstrates how modern socioeconomic dilemmas are similar to issues present during the Great Depression and 1970s to 80s deindustrialization. Both during the Great Depression and 1970s deindustrialization, laborers responsible for constructing infrastructure, architecture, and laying much of developing cities' foundations were left unemployed and without pay after the work was done. The opening lyrics of Rivet quote Edgar Ypsilanti Harburg's song, Brother Can You Spare a Dime, which is commonly referred to as the Song of the Great Depression. Co-writer Jay Gorney recalls waiting in breadlines because no one had jobs to work or money to spend. At a glance, the lyrics may seem like the narrator is begging for money. However, they are of a different notion. Laborers worked hard and fast to develop the United States' framework, and their proficiency was rewarded with unemployment. Gary, Indiana, shows how little was learned from the Great Depression. Deindustrialization in the 1980s resulted in the collapse of Gary's steel industry, decimating the city's economy. The town was once thriving with packed streets and rapidly growing businesses. Now, most streets are deserted, shops and homes boarded up, and crime and poverty rates steep. In contrast, Indianapolis, just a couple hours away, has a massively successful aerospace and chemical manufacturing industry, which stimulates a booming economy. America has a habit of romanticizing its past to inspire pride and patriotism, although this isn't a unique situation. Many countries distort past events to save face. Looking at things with a one-dimensional perspective is counterproductive, however. If you are ignorant of or unable to recognize failures, the same mistakes are bound to be made again. Referring back to Mount Rushmore, it is a major tourist destination attracting roughly 3 million visitors annually. The general consensus is that the mountain is a beacon of patriotism, showing off massive carvings of some of America's founding fathers. Despite this glorious portrayal, two of the presidents were slave owners, and another, Abe Lincoln, ordered the largest government-sanctioned mass execution in American history. Being taught both the greatness and incompetence of each president could provide tourists with a more complete perspective of the historic site. Viewing American history with blind patriotism can result in an unhealthily optimistic view of the present and the future. Although it is probably cited in a sarcastic tone, Protest the Hero uses Donald Trump's famous electoral slogan to invoke hope in the listeners. Land of innovation, land of common sense, let's make America great again. The past is full of powerful lessons, and many may be difficult to confront. Ignoring them, however, would definitely be to the detriment of the United States' future. Thank you.